Greetings, world. Can you tell your Cyclops from your Colossus? Well, that's okay, because neither can we. We'll learn together on Uncanny, the mutant musings of Matt and Siz. This is the show where we discuss Marvel's Uncanny X-Men comic issue by issue, all the way from 1975's giant-size X-Men #1 to the present day. My name is Matt. I write and draw Steamroller Man, a comedy superhero comic that you can read for free online at steamrollerman.com. And this is my co-host Siz, the publisher, promoter, and founder of Comics Studios Australia. You can find everything comics at comx.net.au. comics.net.au. Siz, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we are talking about the return of the Sentinels.
That's right.
Issue 98 of the X-Men, still being labeled the all-new, all-different X-Men, but inside they are calling it the Uncanny X-Men. I don't know which issue they started doing that, but I've read ahead, and they do it for the next one as well. So maybe they're doing that, and then finally, somewhere along the lines, they bring it to the front cover.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering which issue it's going to be, because each successive issue that we're reading for the show, I'm like, oh no, it's still all new, all different. They haven't changed it to Uncanny yet. But exactly. Yeah, so I don't know. Like, I don't remember. I always just remembered it being Uncanny X-Men, but I guess it's not yet. So anyway, what a great cover on this issue.
Oh yeah, it is, isn't it?
It's so eye-catching and so action-packed. I love Colossus coming, straight at camera.
Yeah.
We talked last show about how much I love this design for Colossus, so we don't need to revisit that. But yeah, I just love this design. It's great.
Yeah.
And the Sentinels, originally designed by Jack Kirby for the original X-Men run with Stan Lee.
Yes. That's well, it's actually interesting you say that. I don't know if I should give this away right at the beginning, but Stan Lee and Jack Kirby have a little cameo in this. It's quite funny, actually.
They do.
I wasn't expecting it because they said their names and went, oh, that's just like Stan Lee. Oh, that's just like Jack Kirby. And I went, hang on, that's what they're meant to be.
Yeah, there's a few cameos in here.
Oh, really? I only saw two. Them and I saw Nick Fury.
Yes, I was just going to say.
That's the only two I saw. That's the only two I saw.
On the first page, where we have this outdoor Christmas scene, they're in Rockefeller Center in New York. They're all in their plain clothes, so we can see Cyclops and Jean Grey, Wolverine, Banshee. Storm is wearing this nice white cloak, and then you can also see Kurt and Peter on the left side of frame. Kurt's the one in that red jacket. Again, he's using that image inducer that we talked about last issue.
Yeah.
But I think we are also seeing Matt Murdock, who is right below Jean Grey, the redhead with the glasses.
I didn't think of that.
I think that might be Matt Murdock. Mm-hmm. And then, as you said, you've got Nick Fury and the Contessa, which is his girlfriend from the Jim Steranko run. That is clearly Nick Fury because of the eye patch. And I'm wondering if the two people on the bottom right corner of the panel are some real people. Like, I don't know whether that may be Chris Claremont or Dave Cockrum drew himself into the panel, but they just look like a little too much like real people,
Yeah, and they look kind of important, like they're meant to be someone. If just the way they've been drawn, sort of, I get what you mean. It does look like they're meant to be someone.
Exactly.
And they're there with Nick Fury.
Yeah.
So kind of would make sense.
So I don't know. This is another time we need to ask the viewers Like, if you know who those people are supposed to be, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. Put it in the comments. That'd be awesome.
Because I need to know. And then, go ahead.
No, I was going to say what I was just looking at my notes and I'm trying to remember what happens, what I wanted to talk about, and most of it. Oh, I should probably give a rundown of who did this book as well.
Oh yes, please
someone
do.
pointed out that I didn't do that for 1 or 2 episodes. So the writer is Chris Claremont by himself again.
Yep.
We've got the artist is Dave Cockrum. The inker is Sam Granger, I think is how you pronounce that.
Yeah.
Letters is Joe Rosson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Joe
Colors
Rosen.
is Janice Cohan. And, of course, the editor is still Marv Wolfman. Now, the thing I'm noticing is that the inker... No, sorry, is it the inker? Well, the letter and colors at least keep swapping around each issue.
They do.
I think
they're
the
changing
inker does as well.
every issue.
Yeah, which is weird because I usually thought they found an inker that works well with the artist and then they stick with it. Maybe they're trying to find someone, and that's why the inker keeps changing.
I think because at this point we're still at the bi-monthly schedule. I think in this issue they actually say it's 1975 and it's December 23rd. Like they actually, which is rare for comics to actually like nail it down with a date, because time is such an elastic concept in comic books that you never know. Like, well, if this is taking place in real time, then. But the next issue doesn't come out for a month, that doesn't mean a month has passed. So, that's always fascinated me since I was a kid. Like, same. It would be interesting to go back and actually like chart or how much time has actually passed in the actual in comic continuity over the publishing history of the X-Men, which is now like 50 years. But how much time actually took place in the comic? It wasn't
Croquet
50 years.
Could have happened in the 80s. Who knows?
Right. Exactly. That's the weird kind of thing, because it's always got to be like a contemporary set. Like it's always in present day, but it's not taking place over the course of 50 years. So that's just a weird kind of thing for them to actually like nail it down to, yes, this is happening in 1975. Interesting. But what I wanted to mention was on page 2, there's a couple more cameos in here. Really? If you look at panel 3 in the lower left-hand corner, I am sure that this is Dave Cockrum sneaking Clark Kent and Lois Lane into the comic.
I was going to say that's all I could see those two as is Clark Kent and Lois Lane. So that's a bit cheeky.
Yeah, I'm sure that has to be Clark Kent and Lois Lane. And then the bald guy, I'm wondering whether that's Julius Schwartz, who is like a longtime DC comics editor. Oh. I don't know, but it looks a lot like him. It could be anybody. It could be any bald guy. But again, like it looks like it's supposed to be some real person that Dave Cockrum has kind of snuck in to the comic. In the crowd scenes, you got to it must be difficult for comic artists when they get crowd scenes, because you got to make up different faces on everybody and different clothing, and you're doing it on the fly. You're trying to get like a page done every day. And so, you don't blame them for putting their friends in, putting these, a sneak appearance by characters from another company. They've seen it done in other comics besides this one. But it's always kind of fun to kind of pick those out. It's cool.
They snuck Santa in.
Right. Another cameo from Santa Claus.
Another cameo. I can barely recognize him, but I just the white beard and the red suit and everything else gave him away. It's not this page. It's the next page.
Next page.
Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
Is Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. And I thought this was interesting because this period of their relationship is probably the least friendly period of, because they had a falling out in the
Yeah.
1970s, and at this point Jack Kirby has left. He left Marvel to go to DC in 1970, and that's when he created Mr. Miracle and all the Fourth World stuff, and Commandy and the Demon. And none of those titles really sold very well. And so, he kind of became disillusioned from that experience, because he was kind of promised, like, oh, we're going to give you your whole own line of comics, and you can do whatever you want with them. And it turned out that sort of fell apart when he was there, and it didn't turn out to be everything they had promised him. And so he left DC very disillusioned and kind of had to come back to Marvel. And that's when they put him on Captain America and Black Panther, and he created Devil Dinosaur and Machine Man at Marvel. And that would have been around this time. But Stanley and Jack Kirby had sort of kind of fallen out. Like I didn't know that. Yeah, they weren't friends at this time. So this is sort of, I just thought this was interesting, because this is kind of creating the myth of like Jolly Jack Kirby and Smiling Stan Lee, and we're all pals in the Marvel bullpen. But like when you read about the history of what was actually going on with the real people, it wasn't like that at all. So,
that's
interesting.
Yeah.
But then the major thing on this page is the Sentinels have returned.
Oh my God, no, it can't be them. It's not them.
The melodrama of X-Men comics is one of the best parts about it. Like it's always so like this heightened emotional, everybody's in a heightened emotional state at all times. And that's what's so fun about it.
Well, you'll have a few pages from now is where Cyclops talks to himself again.
He can't stop.
He can't stop.
He has to.
He's yelling at himself
all the
even.
Time.
He's yelling again.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
I love this panel though. The bottom right panel with the Sentinels bursting through the roof of the building. It looks fantastic. It's just so good. I just love the Sentinels design and just the concept of these giant robots. Very cool.
Very.
On the next page, this is the first time we see this really cool effect that Dave Cockrum has done in panel 2.
Yeah,
where there's no black
like before.
Yeah, and he's going to do it quite a few more times in this issue and the next issue and the following issue, because he sort of, I think he kind of started to like how this part looked, and I love it. I think it looks great.
It looks awesome.
It's just sort of this really, I don't even know what words to use to describe this technique, but he drops the blacks out, so there's no shadow, and it's all just so that way color can just be dropped into these spaces and the shapes. It gives it a real kind of psychedelic pop art sort of look, and I just love it.
Awesome.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm loving the last panel where it's like we have awesome. They're up the top. They're saying we can negate all your powers. The old Sentinels,
right?
Figured you guys out, and then Cyclops just goes, full power, blows them away.
So much for that. One other cool thing here is we see in panel 4 his glasses, the lenses flip up to let him shoot his eye beams out. So that's a cool gadget. I didn't know he could.
I've never seen that
even
before.
Do that.
I'm curious if it happens again.
Yeah.
Because with all the comics I'm used to, he used to just put his glasses down, like take them off, and blast that way. So this is interesting.
And it's also interesting because you don't see his hand up, like he's not physically flipping the lenses up. Something is
Maybe they're like
doing
his
it
visors.
automatically.
Might be like
Yeah,
his visors.
maybe.
If he opens his
Yeah.
eyes all the way,
Yeah, there's a sensor in there. Maybe. The
quite
other
good
interesting
sensors back
thing.
those days.
Yeah, exactly. The technology was cutting edge. I assume Professor X made these glasses for him because I know
Oh, of
Professor X
course.
created his visor for him. Um,
Probably
interesting
unstable
thing.
molecules.
It's all unstable molecules, man. It's all unstable molecules. When in doubt, unstable
Stable
molecules.
molecules, I like.
Um, interesting thing here is, you know about the Marvel method of writing comics, right? Where
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, the way
yeah,
that Stan used to do it. Yeah.
yeah. So the writer would just submit an outline to the artist, and then the artist would take that outline, which was usually just like a couple of pages, and then the artist would make a 20-page story out of just that outline, and then the pencils would go back to the writer, who would then add dialogue in the panels. And I had a
Oh,
friend in college who hated X-Men comics, and I was like, really, you hate the X-Men? Why? And he said, because the writing is always redundant. Like, you can see what's happening in the panel, but then you'll have the character describing what is happening in the panel that the reader already can see. And I noticed in this page, this is what's happening, like in the middle panel, panel 3, where the Sentinel is being knocked off balance. The
yep.
Sentinel is actually saying,
Same.
mutant mind blast has thrown this unit off balance. And it's like, well, yeah, we can see that you're off balance. So I was just thinking, like, a lot of this, and then in the next panel, Scott says, the Sentinel's outside the building. Now I can let him have it full power. But that's exactly what we see in the next panel.
Yeah.
Like, we see he's outside. You didn't have to tell us because we can see it. So
I never thought of that before.
yeah, it's weird. It happens a lot in, like, now you'll never be able to not notice it now that I've brought it to your attention.
You've just made me realize where they give the year of and the date of this comic. This is the page where she also that Jean Grey refers to the fact that it was 1969 that they last battled the Sentinels. And I'm like, that's interesting because that's outright saying it's been 6 years since that issue.
Yes,
So,
exactly. Yeah, so it's 6 years since the issue, but she's also inferring that it's also been 6 years in their time.
yeah.
In X-Men continuity, which is interesting.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, crazy time stuff with comics.
Yeah,
I don't know how it works.
They usually avoid this sort of stuff, so you don't have
exactly.
to go, what the hell? So this is interesting.
Exactly.
You got all these cameos. You got them saying what date it is. It's crazy issue. Crazy issue.
Yeah. So, all right. What was the next thing you wanted to talk about?
Mine is more about what happens later, except this page is where old Cyclops is talking to himself again.
Yes.
Hanging off the side of the building. I have to hang on. How long can I do it for? And it's like, who would say that?
Yeah, that was one thing that it sort of made me think, like, is Claremont giving Scott things to say even when it's not necessary? Like, this could easily just be word balloons of him going like, ag, and not saying anything, but just, even if it was just like, oh, I just barely managed to grab it. But he's doing this whole monologue to himself, which is very strange.
It is. Especially when he yells at himself, how long? It's like I wouldn't be saying that if I was hanging off the side of a building about to
Exactly.
plummet to my death. I wouldn't be giving myself a
Exactly.
little bit of a, I've only got an inch. It just has to move an inch and I'll fall. And how
Exactly.
long can I hang on?
Exactly.
How long? He refers to himself in third person.
Yes, they all do.
Oh, that's
Storm,
true. They all do.
especially.
Yeah.
Storm is like I think later in this issue, it's on the next page. I think
On the
a
next
couple
page,
of
is it?
pages from now. But yeah, she refers to herself in third person like so much.
I've never noticed that.
So here's another interesting costume change moment.
Yes.
So the Sentinel falls to the ground where Banshee and Kurt and Colossus have kind of walked off ahead of the group, and so now they see the Sentinel fall to the street and are alerted that something's wrong. We got to go help. Banshee like just bursts his clothes off with, I am assuming, like a sonic blast.
Yeah, sonic blast is what I thought as well, because it looks like it's coming from his mouth.
Yeah. And then Storm does the thing again that she did last issue, where she summons a lightning bolt to hit herself, and then she's just transformed into her X-Men costume, which is interesting. Unless she was wearing the costume the whole time under that white cloak, and she just throws the cloak off. But
And hits
again,
herself with
like,
lightning.
yeah, it's strange. It's strange.
Well, this one you can get away with that. But the
Yes.
other time she does it, it's like she's not wearing knee-high boots, not even knee, what are they, thigh-high boots, and all that sort of gear would have shown in the other costume, so it wasn't under anything she was wearing, it just appears.
Yes.
I was like,
Yes.
wow, this lightning bolt is like Wonder Woman spinning. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's comic book magic, my friend. Comic book magic. So yeah, on the next page is where
I love this page.
Storm is talking about, is this the one? Yeah, she's thinking to herself in that first panel. She said, if Banshee thinks Storm will remain away from the heart of this battle, he is mistaken. Like, she refers to herself even in her thoughts. That's why I think like the X-Men 97 cartoon gets it so right, because when you watch that, like, she's always like, Storm will stop you, and she is referring to us. And I was like, oh god, it's a bit bombastic. But then when you read the comics, it's exactly accurate to how she talks in the comics.
Yeah, that's true.
So what did you love about this page?
When I was a fan, like when I was reading it as a fan, I'm still a fan. That sounded wrong. But yeah, when I was a kid, there we go. That's better. When I was a kid, I didn't notice all this stuff.
I know, of course
I didn't notice.
not.
I just thought, oh yeah, people talking about themselves in their brain. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. It's only now that you've got a cynical friend like me to point all this stuff out and ruin everything for you.
I'm sure I would have noticed this, but I rushed. I read it in a rush, so yeah.
Yeah. So you were saying you really liked this page. What was it about this page in particular that stuck out to you?
Just Storm. I love it when she goes full, full Omega. It's the only word I can think of.
Yes.
And her eyes are like got energy coming out of them. That's not something you see very often.
No, that's true. And yeah, on the next page,
on this page, it's like, Sentinel, you're screwed. You're screwed, dude.
Right. yeah, exactly. And then she does basically unleashes a full-on hurricane onto this Sentinel. And yeah, that's what I wrote down about this page, is that she really is showing off her Omega level mutant powers by creating a huge hurricane above New York City. Very cool.
Yeah. And then she, even when Scott goes, what are you doing? You could destroy the city, or whatever he says. And she's like, I had that under total control. nothing
Yeah.
but the Sentinel was harmed type of thing.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like she's like
Very cool.
powerful and very much in control.
Yeah, she's a great character. I really like Storm.
Yeah, she's kick ass.
And
And this is where
then,
Scott has the realization: Professor X, he doesn't know. He could
yeah,
be a
someone's got
target.
to warn him. And then you flip the page.
And flip the page, and there he
It's
is
like,
fishing away.
He's just enjoying his vacation on a fishing
And I
boat.
didn't know this guy, Peter Corbo.
No, I've never heard of him before this story either, but we've got one
It
of
has something
those
to do with the
little,
Hulk.
these little footnotes
Yeah, a little footnote.
on panel 2 says that he appeared in the Hulk at some point. So he seems to be an impressive dude. He is a PhD, a 2-time Nobel Prize winner, and director of the UN's Project Starcore, which is we're gonna see what that is later in this issue and in the next issue. And he's basically also a qualified astronaut, which we'll also find out later. So yeah, impressive dude, and somehow he's friends with Charles, and they're going on vacation together.
Is he friends though, or is Charles just tricking him?
Who knows? Who knows?
I love thinking that as a kid. Whenever Xavier did anything, it's like, is that person really, or is he just doing his mind thing? Because he seems to know a lot of people, and he's very close to them, and they're all very high up in the government, and it seems a bit sus.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, like I said on the last show, that like Professor X is kind of like, when you really kind of break down his actions in terms of like their appropriateness for the situation that he's in, he's kind of a douchebag. Manipulating the minds of government officials would kind of go along with that.
It would.
I don't know.
Oh,
I'm
the
just
other thing
taking
to
this
say
at
about
face value. Yeah,
yeah. I was just mucking around mostly, but it would be funny if that's what's going on. Peter also designed and built the boat, which I found was pretty impressive as well.
Yes, because you see on the next page, is it the next page? Yeah. So a Sentinel attacks, bursts out of the water this time, and the boat has hydrofoils, and it becomes like this superpowered speedboat to get them out of the way, out of danger.
Yeah.
One thing I thought was interesting was that the Sentinel's speech pattern switches from like this sort of like robotic talk where the Sentinels are saying like malfunction, this unit cannot find mutants. But then when the moment calls for something more dramatic, it then speaks in the first person, and it says like, I have come for you, Charles Xavier.
Yeah.
So, it's sort of
instead of this unit has come for you or something like that, which would be more how they normally talk.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Like I couldn't get a read on the Sentinels in this issue. It's sort of explained like why they're acting weird. I think in the next issue, it's explained very briefly in the dialogue.
Yeah,
but at this point, I was like, why do they all seem so easily defeatable? Because I always thought of the Sentinels as like, oh, they're kind of like the supreme, one of the big bads of the X-Men kind of world. And whenever the Sentinels appear, it presents such a huge challenge for the X-Men. But at this point in this story, they're just kind of knocking them over like bowling pins,
It's funny you should say that because it's not this issue. Sorry, next issue, next week.
Yeah.
They actually mentioned that. One of the X-Men actually mentioned that.
Right.
It says why are they so easy to take care of?
Yeah. It became a little. It got noticeable for me, but I was sort of, especially when reading this issue, I was like, what's going on? Like, can they just explain? Like, why is this happening? But anyway, not to worry. So the so on the next page,
Yep.
Charles has some kind of flashback to those dreams he's been
Yes.
having about the mysterious alien, who is also going to be factoring into an upcoming storyline. And then Corbeau thinks, oh, he's just lost his mind. I guess I got to
I love that he says that.
Yeah, he's like, oh, he's gone round the bend. I guess he's not going to be any help.
Around the bend. I love that. Not thinking, oh, he's under attack or there's some psychic attacking him or anything like that. He's just like, oh, he's gone around the bend. He's screaming,
he's like,
no.
oh, fat lot of good you were. Don't worry, I'll figure this out.
Some pal you are.
But then the Sentinel like bursts through the entire boat.
Yeah, that's a cool
knocking
graphic.
them both into the water. And then it looks like in panel 6 on the bottom, the orange background panel, looks like the Sentinel has Charles in his hand flying away. And then the last panel on this page, Corbeau is clinging to the wreckage saying, oh, this looks bad, chum. You're 200 miles from land. If no one heard your mayday, and it's a long swim. And so I was like, 200 miles. That sounds like a long way to swim. And I looked up, like, how far is the English Channel swim? Because, like these marathon endurance swimmers will do, like, swim across the English Channel as, like, oh, that's the ultimate kind of test of endurance. The English Channel is only, I think, I wrote it down somewhere. The English Channel is, I didn't write it down. But I think it's the English Channel is only something like 21 miles.
Oh, wow. That's a big difference.
So he's going to be swimming for a long time.
Well, I'm looking at this last panel, and I'm thinking he's not going to be swimming very far at all. Because if you look right at the top of the panel, there is a really, 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 really big fish.
Yeah, that looks like a silhouette of a shark.
It does, doesn't it? So I'm like, oh, well, that's the last we've seen of Peter.
Yeah, so. Exactly. So then on the next page, we're in, it's not only a change of location, but it's a time jump. The narration, this is where it ties it down to a date, because it says this is 4 days later. And it's now the 28th of December, 1975.
Oh, wow.
And so we see, now we're with Stephen Lang, the evil head of Project Armageddon.
With his lovely uniform.
Yeah. All his henchmen have uniforms as well. This really reminded me of like a 1960s James Bond movie, or it's a very sort of 60s era kind of thing to have, like, the secret base, but all the henchmen are wearing like these jumpsuits. I really like it. I think it's really cool.
The logo. They've all got the logo.
Yeah, exactly. The Project Armageddon logo. And the X-Men are all shackled. One interesting thing is it says, like, Wolverine's struggling against the shackles, and then Stephen Lang says those chrome alloy shackles are unbreakable. So it's obviously some special metal. But then if you go to the next page...
Yeah, I thought this was weird.
He slaps Jean Grey, and then Wolverine loses his temper, and he just breaks out of the chrome alloy shackles that are supposed to be unbreakable.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice to say his claws did it, but they were around his wrists.
Exactly. But this is the first time that we see his claws come out of his actual hands, not his gloves, which we talked about a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah, we did.
And he basically goes to town on the guards and rips apart a Sentinel.
Yep.
So he's got his berserker rage like in full effect, and Stephen Lang like runs off, and then on the next page, so somehow Wolverine gets his costume from somewhere.
Yeah, I was wondering about this.
I don't know where his costume was, but
Yeah, neither do
I guess he brought it. I guess he brought it with him when they went
Yeah.
out.
Maybe it was in his pockets, you know.
Right.
Like maybe he's got a ring like the Flash. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. A bit weird. And then the funny thing here on this page is like he's like, okay, let's get out of here, and then Jean and Banshee are like, well, hang on, we can't just leave Professor X.
Yeah, that's
Wolverine's
right.
like, the hell we can't.
Yeah, I love that bit. What does he say? Well, hang on, I got to get the. He's crippled and unconscious, so we're gonna leave him behind.
Right. Yes. Exactly. No mercy from Wolverine whatsoever.
Yeah. We're getting a real good picture of what Wolverine is all about, aren't we?
Exactly. But
like,
then more
leave me, let's go.
Sentinels. Yeah. They spent too much time talking because more Sentinels arrive.
Yep.
Bursting through the walls. And then we're in a full-on battle scene.
Yep. Look how many there are.
Yeah, this was cool. I liked the idea of just like an endless parade of Sentinels. Like it's just wave after wave throwing themselves at the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
And again, on this page, you see another example of Dave Cockrum doing that effect with Jean's powers, where she kind of, it's not exactly like the Human Torch, but it's got a bit of that quality.
It's got that, it's got that vibe, hasn't it? But
almost like a glow from within. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. There's little green kind of bubbles in the beams that she's shooting out. It's very interesting looking.
I like
and then
it.
There's, me too. It looks awesome. It looks great. And what else did I write down about this page? Jean notices that the Sentinels... So this is where Jean says, like, these Sentinels are really easy to defeat. Like, something's wrong here.
Yeah.
But they don't follow up on that until next issue. So I thought that was kind of curious because it was such a small sort of mention. It's only like it's one line of dialogue, but it doesn't even get followed up on until the next issue. So, yeah, a bit weird.
What I've always found fascinating here, although it was a couple of pages back as well, Xavier did it as well. I've always found it amazing that telepaths can take out computer brains and computer circuitry and stuff. I went, hang on, how the hell does that work? And they show she does it here, and Xavier does it on the other, like earlier in the issue.
Yeah,
and it's like, how does that? And then and then you go back to the Valhalla place.
Yep,
and he disables the machinery with his mind powers.
Right, that's a good point.
Like he goes, "It's okay, Scott. I've already dealt." Well, he doesn't say it like that. He's like, "I've already dealt with it. Get out there and save the other X-Men."
Yeah.
You fool. I'm like, why didn't you just do that in the beginning? Why did you send your X-Men there? Why didn't you just disable it from home? It's like, oh, we've got a problem over there. Hang on. Okay, problem solved. Anyway, what are we doing tomorrow?
Another example of the questionable leadership of Professor Xavier.
But I've always found that fascinating that they can take out brains, circuitry.
That is interesting. I think that must be one of those, like, don't think too hard about it. It's comics, and kids aren't going to care. I think that is sort of like the approach, is that, again, like as we've talked about before, like, well, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, in the next issue, not to jump ahead, but they give a hint that there's a little bit more to the Sentinels than just being machines.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe that's why they can. And why have they never thought that means something? I'll never understand.
One thing that you have to say about these stories is that it really is like laying the groundwork for a bunch of more potential storylines in the future.
Yes.
Like it's seeding so many interesting ideas and concepts that they're just sort of it's just sort of throwing it at the reader and not necessarily explaining everything, which is in a way is good because it leaves more material to build on in later issues. And as we go through future issues, we may find out, oh yeah, he's following up on this that we read in this very issue. Who knows?
This page was cool as well.
Yeah.
Page 17. So we're on the second last page of the story.
Yeah, this is almost the end.
The look on Banshee's face at the end there when they escape the base.
Right.
I didn't even think what actually happens, what you find out on the next page.
Yeah.
What actually happened, I thought there was like a bigger enemy. I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
What's he come out to? What's got him in such shock? Like,
yeah,
we're doomed kind of look on his face.
Yeah, it's a really good
What is
tease. That and his scream stops.
Yeah.
Because they've got his scream going with "ee," and then it's got that little asterisk that it's cut short.
When you go to the next page.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like it's a really good tease for the next like, oh my God, what does he see? What happened?
Yeah.
And I love that middle panel on this page that is so dynamic of like Banshee, he's got Jean and Wolverine by the hand speeding out, like all those speed lines. You can really feel the velocity.
Yeah, you can, can't you?
You know, the guy in the foreground covering his ears. It's a really, really nice visual representation of Banshee's like sound-based power and exactly what he can do with that power is like convert the sound to enable him to fly and fly really fast too, and also like break apart stuff.
Steel base.
It's great. It's such a nice panel. I love it. And then okay, so then I like the funny thing on this page, I thought, was the final panel after we cut from Banshee like seeing like something obviously like horrifying, and then we cut to Cyclops and Nightcrawler back at the X Mansion, and Cyclops is looking at Cerebro like he's trying to find the rest of the X-Men. He doesn't know where they are. He's using Cerebro, but he's got a half pot of coffee and a cup of coffee and a plate with a sandwich just casually sitting on this one-of-a-kind supercomputer. It's like, is that wise?
Well, I just love that he's been, I've got to know what's going on. But the thing is, there's a teapot on the top of it as well. A coffee mug thing.
Exactly. What is he doing?
What's going on here? But yeah, that's I noticed the sandwich and just went. He's a bit casual about looking for them. He's not there at the machine. Come on, tell me where they are. He's like, just have a coffee here. I wonder where they are.
Exactly. You can imagine like Nightcrawler being like, Scott, we've got to get on Cerebro and find the X-Men. He's like,
no, I'm going to have a cup of coffee first.
Let me make a sandwich, brew a cup of coffee. I'll be right with you. Just give me 10 minutes. There's no rush.
Yeah, I found. So that's about it for this page for you as well.
Yep.
Laughing at the last panel and just the way he's sitting and everything just looks so casual.
Yeah, like, very casual.
Where they are.
And then, okay, so the top tier of panels on this page, what I thought was interesting here is that Cerebro has detected someone coming over the back wall. So I thought that Cerebro was just a mutant detection system.
That's what I thought.
This seems to imply either that it's also a computer that is kind of running the mansion's security system as well, or that it can also detect non-mutants, because it turns out that it's Dr. Peter Corbeau climbing over the wall. So not only has he, presumably swum 200 miles, like now he hasn't stopped to make a sandwich or a cup of coffee.
No.
He's clearly come straight from the swim to climb over the wall. And then
what a swim it's taken him 4 days.
Right. Oh, there you go. There you go. It all makes sense. Mathematically, it works out. And then Nightcrawler brings him in. And then you see him like shivering with a blanket. So he's clearly like, he's not doing well. And they've given him a cup of coffee. Well, there you go. Cyclops made him a cup of coffee. That's what the coffee was for.
It was sitting on the machine. So just a bit of a reach over.
Exactly. He's like, oh, Peter, you arrived at the right time. I just put a coffee pot on. Let me pour you a cup.
That's hilarious.
So then, like, the big reveal is, Go ahead. Tell us what the big reveal of this exactly.
They're looking down on the Earth, and it's like, well, no wonder his face looked like that. It's like, oh, crap, no air.
Yeah. What a cliffhanger. I thought this was great. Like, it's so, like, the escapism of this is so cool that, when we're not even that far into these new X-Men's adventures, and they're already, like, doing this adventure in space where they're fighting giant robots. And, this was a great surprise. Like, I was genuinely turned this page and I was like, oh shoot, they're in space.
Same. I was expecting some huge villain, and then outer space was not what I was expecting.
Yeah. Really cool.
Oh, space, holy crap, that's even worse.
Yeah, really cool. So we got to find out what happens in the next issue. But that's the last page of this one. Well, and that means we've come to the end of another episode of our show.
Uncanny, yes. And so that brings us, Matt, to what's your band name for this issue?
Well, I think the band name for this issue can only be the Chrome Alloy Shackles.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you have anything, if you have anything to say about what we've talked about, whether it's agreeing with our opinions or disagreeing and we're completely wrong, down in the comments, let us know. Let us know what we said wrong, what we said right, what you love, what you didn't love, anything. But of course, what's more important is that you like the video and subscribe to the channel. That would be very helpful. It helps us make more of these. That would be awesome. And you will get alerted to more uncanny conversations like this one. So see you next time, where we discuss issue 99. Of Uncanny X-Men, which is still being called the all-new, all-different X-Men. But we know what it actually ends up being called. So until then, I'm Siz. You can find me at comex.net.au. That's ComX, no I. There is no I in ComX. And where we can find, and where you can find other stuff about everything that I do. And Matt, where can we find out more about what you do?
You can find my stuff at steamrollerman.com.
Excellent. So goodbye, everyone, and see you next week. Enjoy.
See you next week, everybody.